Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. We'll be getting started shortly here. Expect the training to be roughly an hour and a half. Just making sure my audio is working here. And we are here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We do have other YouTube videos on our channel here, specifically like our advanced reporting demo, Acdq's Pro demo. We had a Zapier webinar about a month ago now. So in terms of some of those features, I'm not going to go into as much detail, so you can refer to those videos. But we are at 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Here we have our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website, either via there's a blue bar going across the web page that has a login link there. And we'll go ahead and get started here. So to log in, we need your email address and your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then your account name, right? Your company name. Now, if you don't have that information, like you never got the email with your password, let's go back. Right, then you want to click on the Forgot Your Info link over here on the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar. We still need your email address, right? That's the one piece of information we do need to have. And then we need either the account name or a phone number on the account, right? One of your customer-facing phone numbers. Then you'll click Reset Password. The system will send you an email with a link that lets you log in temporarily, so that way you can change your password. It will log you back out. So you're back to this page here where you can click on the Remember Me, and then you can sign in normally. Now, this Dash account is a test account that excuse me, sorry, being a little distracted here. All right. Since I've been into this account several times, right, it takes me right to the dashboard page. Now, your first time logging in, the system will actually take you to your account page, right? This is your own personal account page. This is where you would change your own password, for example. You could change your time zone, etc. Now, as an admin, you also have the account level settings, and the main thing that's changed here is typically your time zone. Now, that first time logging in, Dash Wizard is going to have little pop-up boxes telling you what these features are. On your accounts, you have a live account, you'll have a billing section underneath where it says user here on the left. And that's where you would see things like your invoices, right? You could see your service plan. You could adjust who the billing contact is, right? So who's getting the invoices or who has ultimate control of the account. And you would also be able to update your credit card. Once you're done here, you then click on Close at the top right, and then you'll be on your dashboard page. And again, on that first login, the Dash Wizard will pop up telling you what certain things are. So up here at the top, again, that's your name. You can click on there to get back to that account page at any time. Many of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a Dnd toggle, right? So Dnd meaning do not disturb. It's by default, it's off. If you click on it, it'll shift it over and be white, and that lets you know that you have Dnd active, meaning you're not going to be offered calls. The reason I don't have it on my user here is because my user is in an Acdq, and the Acdq feature and the do not disturb feature do not play well together, so they remove it once you're added as a queue member, or the system removes it. Here at the question mark, right, help icon, the chat with us, that's going to open up a chat window, typically on the bottom right corner of your browser, so you can chat with a support representative in real time. Learn more, this will open up a new tab and take you right to the support pages, so you can see the various guides we have about our various features. All right, online store, this will open up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and this is where you would order things like a VoIP phone, right, or a router even. Now, there's a blank spot here that is sometimes populated by the web phone link. So the web phone is a device that has to be added to your user for it to show up here in this last spot. But when it's there, it opens up a new tab that takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. You just use your -login to log in on that page, and then you can use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls from your computer. Here is the menu icon. We sometimes refer to it as the hamburger icon, right? Just these three horizontal lines. And these are other Dash features. Now, we're on the dashboard, which is where we'll be for most of the training. But then these other features we'll get into. Some of them, like Acdqs or dynamic caller ID, they're either plan specific or they have an upgrade fee associated with them. So I'll try to make sure to highlight that. And then with a little logout icon here. Now here we have my total users. I have 16, right? That means I have 16 users on my account. These are people who make and receive calls, right? If I added a user, that's going to increase my bill. If I remove a user, that's likely going to decrease my bill, as most of our plans are built around number of users. Total devices, I have 35 devices on my account, and then I have a breakdown. So first up, actually I should mention, Dash was built with VoIP phones in mind. VoIP meaning for voice over internet protocol, right? So use your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So a soft phone, that is a software application that acts like a phone, right? So it's on a computer, it can be on a tablet, it can be on a cell phone, right? As long as you have internet connectivity, you can use an application to make and receive calls. Now, this total of devices for soft phones, that includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as if you're using a third-party application. All right, then cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. The web phone, right, again, using Chrome or Firefox. Technically, the web phone is a kind of soft phone, right, because a browser is software. It was developed for Dash later, and we actually don't charge for the web phone, so that's why it's been separated out. And then the SIP phone, this is a physical VoIP phone, right? Sits on your desk, you can pick it up, dial out from it. Yealink phone, Cisco phone, etc. Down here, I have unregistered devices. One, this is in reference to my SIP phones. It's saying, hey, one of your physical VoIP phones we can't send calls to, right? It's not registered with us at this time. That could be, the phone simply is unplugged. It could be there's a network problem. Could be they have an internet outage. We don't know. All right, total numbers, I have 25. Most of our plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of the monthly plan price. When you go over your monthly allotment, you will be charged per month per phone number. For the specifics of that for you and your plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team, and they can let you know. Obviously, if you just signed up, you can check our pricing page, and it should tell you how many phone numbers are included. All right, then we have two breakdowns. The first one here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means you're using it, right? So it's one of your main numbers, like I have up here towards my top right, right? These 5 numbers. It could be a number I have for each of my sales staff. Could be going to an Acdq. Could be my fax box number, my conference number, etc. Spare number, it's on my account, so it counts towards my allotment. I'm just not currently using it. So for instance, you had like a Christmas, promotion running, through the very beginning of January. And now that that's long gone, right, you don't need calls on that number when people are still asking about a promotion that's no longer in play. So then you can just take that number out of service, so that way you're not getting calls on it. And then you can reuse that number later, right, or for another purpose. All right, then we've got USDID and US toll-free. The US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? That's an 800 number, 888, all the way down through 833. The US DID, US local numbers, you can have a number in anywhere in the US, right? You can have a number in, say, Saratoga, California, and to be symmetrical, you can have a number in Saratoga, New York, right? Anywhere in between. You can also have international phone numbers. If you're interested in adding an international number, you're going to need to email our porting team. That's porting@virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. Now, if that country that you're interested in has further restrictions or requirements, the porting team will let you know what those are. And once we get those fulfilled, we send that over, and then we're able to add that international number to your account. And that's going to vary from country to country, as they all have their own regulations in place. Conference bridges, right? I have two. That just means I've enabled conferencing on two of my users, meaning two of my users are moderators for conferences, right? They're hosts. Over here to the top right, I have my main numbers, right? So these 5 numbers, they all behave in the same fashion, right? They're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. The conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want to, excuse me. But this is what everyone dials to get to the conference rooms, whether they're your staff members, your vendors, or your clients. They enter this phone number first, then they'll be prompted to enter a conference room number and a PIN number. The fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number, but this is your inbound fax number, right? So if you want to receive faxes, you would have a number there. Then we got the company directory. This downloads a .csv file, and we'll have your users, their extensions, their devices as well. The soft phone directory is for use with the desktop soft phone application from VirtualPBX. Basically, you download this file and then you upload it to the desktop VirtualPBX soft phone app, and you can see the status of your users in relation to the soft phone, right? So if your entire company is using our app on a Windows or Mac PC, then you could use this soft phone directory to see their presence, all right, their status, right? Green, they're available; red, they're on a call. Now, if you have people who have a mix of devices, right? So like you have a colleague with a Polycom phone, with the soft phone directory, you'd only see the status of their soft phone, right? You wouldn't know if they're on a call on the Polycom. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then the account realm, this is used in a couple things. One, it's used for programming a third-party soft phone, right? It's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need from us. It's also used for outbound faxing. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you're sending an email, right? So create an email like you normally do. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number you're faxing to, right? The little @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? The system doesn't look at the subject line or the body of the email. Right? It only cares about the from field, the to field, and the attachment. Right? And it's only going to try to send one attachment. So make sure you don't have a signature file built into your email. Just the one PDF or TIFF you intend to fax out. All right, up here at the top here, we have caller ID. This is your main company caller ID. Now, unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't like pull downs all the time, but right here, this top one, right, you can select any of your main numbers to be your default phone number, right? And that's what the system uses for a couple different features. Then you have the company caller ID name or CNAME. This allows you to input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters, to include as part of your outbound caller ID. Now, this form is all connected, so then you would need to input your company emergency information, right? E911. It just wants a North American address, and then you click Save Changes. Now, once you click Save Changes, we go back to company caller ID name here, right? This information gets then transmitted to the other carriers that support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers. Now, once that's done, you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right? We're sending the 408 phone number as part of your caller ID, as well as this, in this case, the Dnd PBX. Now, unfortunately, when you make an outbound call, not every carrier that your call can route through supports CNAME. It's, that's a business decision, right? We can't make them do things they don't want. We can't make other companies do things they don't want to do. Now, many carriers do support CNAME, so it's usually not a huge problem. The main issue people tend to run into is when they make a call to a cell phone. The cell phone carriers, right, they control what shows up on the cell phones, on their displays on the cell phones on their network, right? So they're the ones who put in things like spam risk or telemarketer, right? That's your cell phone carrier trying to provide a service to you, right? We can't force them to put the CNAME information when we send calls into their network. So that's their decision. In some cases, the cell phone carriers want their subscribers to pay extra for CNAME information to show up on every call. Right? I looked at this a couple of years ago. I use AT&T. At that point, right, they wanted an extra $10 a month for CNAME to show up on every call that shows up on my cell phone. Me personally, not worth it, so I chose not to do so. I believe some of the other carriers may include it as part of a bundle of other features, so maybe that's more worthwhile. But just be aware when you're making a call to a cell phone, your CNAME information most likely will not show up. All right, hold music. On Dash, hold music is defined as after a call has reached a user, and then that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. Dash will allow you to upload your own files. You just need to make sure that they are either a .wav, right, .wav, .mp3, or .ogg file formats. You want to make sure that they are recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. And then you would click on Save Changes. And that would be the default hold music for all of your users. Now, the hours here, this is actually part of main number. So I'm just going to click on main number. We'll work our way down. All right, so first up, main company numbers, right? So these are all my main numbers, right? So these numbers all are going to behave the same way. Obviously, you can have multiple main numbers. If you decide you no longer want to use a number as a main number, you would just click Unassign next to it. And that removes it from being a main number. Now, and I can do that with multiple numbers, right? Now, the numbers are still in my account, right? They're just now a spare number versus being a main number. Any place you can add a number, right? You'll have the option to add from your spare number list. So here are the other numbers on my spare. You just click on the little check mark and then add selected number. You can also buy numbers, right? You have local and toll-free. Toll-free is easy. You choose a toll-free prefix that you like and click on search, and it will propagate a list of available numbers. You would just click on add, right? Your cart increases, shows you the number, you can remove it, right? You can keep adding more numbers if you want to. and you see the list will keep adding. And then you would click on by number. Local numbers, a little bit different in that you need to know the area code that you want to look for. So you can do, say, 310, which is in Southern California, near LA, and there's no numbers in this area code, right? That means the area code is exhausted. We can try to, our porting team can try to do what's called a back order. So if I try to do a back order for a 310 area code phone number, that means we try to get the next one that becomes available, right? Unfortunately, we won't have an ETA on when or if that's going to happen because we're waiting for someone to give up a 310 area code phone number. What's probably more recommended is looking for an overlay area code, like 424, or a nearby area code. And then you can, again, click add and by numbers. When you buy numbers, the system does verify that the number was actually really available. And then it adds it to your account. Now, there's a little gear icon here to the right. So you can update the caller ID, right? Put the your outbound CNAM. You can turn on the ability to receive inbound CNAM information. Here you can adjust the 911 information for each phone number. And the reason that would be important is you can, for your VoIP phones, you can assign what the E911 information is for each VoIP phone. So you can have the correct location for your staff members. And then prepend is a VoIP feature. This allows you to add text in front of the inbound caller ID information that shows up on the VoIP phone, and it would give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. All right, so if I put the word promo here, and I click Save Changes, then when anyone calls this 424 phone number, right, gets to my staff members, the word promo and then the phone number of the person who's calling in shows up on their VoIP phone's display. So that would give my staff members a heads up about what the call is going to be about. All right. Once you have a main number, then you can start setting up your office hours strategy. When you first sign up, your account defaults to a 24-hour open office, right? Meaning you're open for business right away and all the time. Or you can do custom office hours. And if you do so, put a check mark in front of the day of the week that you're open, or for each of them that you're open. And then in these boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Alrighty. And cool. All right. Alrighty. Just hang up whenever. Oops. And you have the option down here at the bottom to say you're closed for lunch, right? You just put a check mark here if you are, and then you put your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time. Any changes you make, you just click on Save Changes at the bottom. Next up, we have office holidays. First, you decide if you're closed for holidays. And then over here on the right, you have Add Holiday. You click on that, and then you have your options here for single day, date range, or advanced. Right? Single day is pretty easy. right? Like I have here for New Year's Day. You give it a name, you select the month and the date. All right. Date range, like I have here for Christmas break. Again, you give it a name, a start date, and an end date. Advanced is like we have here for Thanksgiving or even this retreat, right? You give it a name, you select the month, and then first through fifth or last is in this middle pull down, and then the day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. So we have these subtabs here, right? Open hours, lunch hours, because I said we're closed for lunch, after hours, holidays, right? And I have these major same basic options. Now, this is applying to my main numbers, right? How those numbers act. So that means my hours, my open hours, right, and my holidays, right? They're applying to my main numbers. They also apply to any auto attendant numbers I have. Any other phone numbers on your account, they're not going to have open hour strategy or holidays, right? This only applies to your main numbers and your auto attendant numbers. So any numbers that you assign directly to a user or to a group, they're going to be available 24/7. Now, we have these options here. So calls come in, they're going to my virtual receptionist. If I click on that, it's a link. It's going to open up a window here. So on the left, I have my main menu, right? This is what people will press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. You click down here towards the bottom to add a route to give you another menu option. You have 0 through 9, the star key, and then also the default action. And then you choose where you're going, right? So the Smart PBX directory, right? Dial by name directory, user directory. You can select a specific user, right? So a specific person. You can send calls to a specific phone, right? A specific device. Now, this isn't always recommended. You would want to make sure that the device has its own built-in voicemail, for example, right? So if I send it to a web phone doesn't have built-in voicemail, right? It would rely on the user's voicemail box. But if I'm just sending it to the device, it doesn't have a user to rely on. So it would just keep ringing until the inbound caller hung up, right? You can send it to a media file, right? So like hours of operation or your directions. Just be aware that once the greeting file ends, the call ends. Right? You can send it to a group, which is like a department. It's like a front desk ring group. Advanced call flows, in this case, that's showing up as Spanish. That is a secondary auto attendant. Like if I wanted to make use of submenuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, that's what those would show up here. Or you can send it to a voicemail box. Now, over on the right, first up, we have our greetings, right? The greetings, where you say thank you for calling. You usually give your company name. But the main thing is you want to give your inbound caller directions, right? What are they going to press to get to where? First up, we have text to speech, right? You can type in what you want the system to say. It's not a computerized robotic voice. You have up to 250 characters to work with, right? Not words, characters. You can sometimes go over. From my testing, 250 works consistently. Above that, it doesn't always work. I haven't figured out exactly what the parameters are. Now, the text-to-speech is great when you're just starting out, right? Like you just started a new business, you've never used a PBX system before, or you're just not sure how you want your system to work yet. Now, when you finish typing in, you click update, save changes, right? The system will save the file. In this case, my main open hours menu TTS, right? That's the file name, right? Because I'm in my open hours up here at the top, right? Now, if I come back in and make a small change, update, save save and save changes, it's still going to use that same file name. So now I'll have two files that say main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation, when you make a text-to-speech greeting, after you click update, save, and save changes, over here on the left, you can barely see it right now, but you can click on your greetings tab, find that text-to-speech greeting you just created and rename it. So something you can recognize. So if you need to flip back to it, it's easy to find. Right, you can upload your own file, right? .ogg, .mp3, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can choose from an existing recording, right? Files that you've already uploaded to the system or used as text-to-speech or recorded over the phone. Right, now this list will show you things like your voicemail greeting files as well as hold music files. So that's why you want names that you can recognize easily. You can record over the phone. Now, by default, the system is saying pick up a phone registered in this account. What that means is a VoIP phone. Right, so that by default, it wants you to use a VoIP phone. That's a security feature, right? Because if you have a VoIP phone that's registered to account, the system knows, oh, this whoever's calling from here, has at least, some affiliation with the organization. Right. You still dial your main number, right? So your main number has to go to the virtual receptionist. And then you would enter in this PIN number. Now, if you just signed up with us, right, and you call your main number, you'll get a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been set up yet. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Now, say for instance, you don't have a VoIP phone added yet. Let's say you just ordered it, online and you're waiting for delivery, but you want to get the greeting in place. In that instance, you want to look down here under settings and then where it says allow outside recording. Right, you want to flip this to on. Right, so once this is turned on, now you're saying, system, you can allow people to call in from a cell phone or a landline and enter the PIN number and record over the phone that way. Now, if you've already been with us for a little while, all right, let's say you're like a new hire to a company, but they've been using us for a year or 2 years, what have you. And they say, hey, you're in charge of the phone system. We need you to change the greeting. So you call into the main number. You hear the greeting that's currently in place, right? You can enter in the PIN number. And then the system will walk you through recording a new main greeting. Now, the system is gonna, since there's a greeting file in place, it overwrites that file, right? So greeting A plays when you called in, you type in PIN number, you record a new greeting, right? The file name stays the same, so it's greeting A, but you overwrote the content. Now, if that's what you intended, that's great, but the main issue comes usually around holiday time when someone does a late greeting change and they overwrote their normal main greeting that they use for most of the year with a holiday greeting. One thing to also be aware of is that this PIN number is only good during my open hours, right? So if I call in after 5 p.m., because my system closes at 5, right, it won't recognize the PIN number. It will say it's invalid. So I can only change my greeting during that time of day. All right. Now we've got professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you, open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. There you can order a greeting from them. They have roughly 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages. They deliver to you via email, and then you would simply upload your own file. All right, settings. So these first two are kind of interlinked. So number of retries on missed dial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on missed dial, that's how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. All right. The dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for a second button press or the next button press, right? So let's say caller calls in, they listen to my greeting and they press 5, right? So that's not a valid menu option here. So after pressing that 5, the system's going to wait a count of 5, right? Because I have a dying timeout of 5. And this says, oh, there's no additional button presses. So they mean 5 only, right? So it's not a valid menu option. The system double checks to make sure it's not an extension, right? If it's not an extension, then it's going to say as an invalid entry, right? We didn't recognize that entry. Now, because I have one retry listed here, the system's going to play the main greeting again, right? So that inbound caller, they listen and they press 7, right? System still waits that count of 5, says, oh, you really mean 7, and there's no 7 menu option, there's no 7 extension. In this case, the system's going to send the caller to the default action, right? The smart PBX directory. Now, if I remove the default action, on that second retry, the system would say, we did not recognize your entries, and it would say goodbye. It would end the call. Generally, dialing timeout, I usually say less than, up to 5. Usually 2 or 3 is plenty. Number of retries also, I say, no more than 3 for most instances. But that's up to your preference in terms of how your customers interact with your system. We already covered the outside recording. By default, this is off, by the way. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. Basically, the system will listen for extension numbers if they're dialed in, right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press my menu options, right? The system will treat extension numbers as invalid. And then suppress the playing of the invalid entry message. If you don't want that message to play when someone makes a mistake, you just turn this on. And now that message will not be played. Right. Any changes, you make sure your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click Save here. And you also need to click Save Changes here under Incoming Call Handling. Right. You're pressing Save twice. This second option here is a live operator answer option, right? So you're essentially the system's offering call to at least a person, could be several people. If they don't pick up, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist. So this is a pull down, right? So you can select any users, you can select your call queues if you have them. You can send it to a specific device, and by default, the system will try for 20 seconds. Right, you can send it to a media file. I don't recommend this because that can be confusing to your callers because they'll hear a second greeting once they get to the virtual receptionist. Can throw people off. You can send it to a ring group, and then you have your advanced call flows. So like say for lunch, for instance, I would want to scroll down. And I can send it to my front desk group. So that way, any of those team members who are in that group can answer the call that comes in. If they're not available, right, then the caller would go to my virtual receptionist. Now, since this is my lunch hours now, not my open hours, right, it's a different virtual receptionist. So I can put different menu options, and I would have likely a different greeting play. Beyond that, everything else, it would be the same. This third option, so, right, you have the same pull down options, right? Users, groups, call queues, media file, etc. But you have one extra one, which is here, skip to voicemail. So basically call comes in, you're sending it straight to voicemail. This would be for like a seasonal business, right? So like tax preparers, right? They're ramping up or already ramped up, getting towards peak busyness, right? But after say Memorial Day or sometime in June, if that's their only business is tax preparing, right? They probably would go into a setting like this where inbound calls just go to voicemail, right? Same would happen for, a very small business where the owner and single person running it says, I want to go on vacation, right? It's just send calls to voicemail. And then this last option here, I'm sending calls to an advanced call flow, meaning my Spanish auto attendant. This only shows up because I have a secondary attendant available, which is a plan-specific feature. We'll get into that shortly. Not used often. Most of you are going to be in these top three. Right, and again, each of these subtabs would have its own virtual receptionist, right? So say own menu options, different greeting. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new numbers. You can set up a custom text-to-speech greeting for your conference, right? So you can like mention your company name. Now, even when this is not enabled, the system will say welcome to the conference and prompt the inbound caller to give or enter their conference room number that they want to join and then the PIN number for that. The main fax box, you can have the one main fax box number, right? So that's the number you receive faxes on. Once you've added the number, you want to click edit here on the fax box. And then you have these two fields that you can enter information on. So the first is the inbound notification, right? This is when you receive an inbound fax, the system will email whatever address you put there. That email is going to include things like the date, the time, the other fax number involved. It will also have a PDF attachment. So then you can just double click on your computer and view the fax. Now, if someone dials your main fax box number, right? So the 775 number I have here, and they hear fax tones and hang up. This email address is going to get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So something to be aware of. Now, obviously, if you were expecting a fax from someone and it failed, then we would want to troubleshoot that and you'd want to talk to our support team. This second field, email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. So you could put an email address here, or what it's really designed for is to put your company domain here, right? So everyone at your company has an email address that ends at abccleaners.com, right? So then by putting your company domain here, anyone on your staff can fax out, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. They just need to know the proper format. All right, auto attendance, this is a plan-specific feature. It allows you to create secondary attendants. Now, the reasons you would do that would be for sub-menuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish, where then you would create a Spanish and English attendant, right? Each with their own main greeting in their appropriate language. And then the menu options would go to either English-speaking or Spanish-speaking staff members, respectively. The other reason you would do this is because you own or run several small businesses, right? Each of those businesses would have their own main number and their own main greeting, but you have the same staff members answering calls for both businesses, or however many businesses. So adding an attendant is up here at the top. Click Add Attendant. You give it a name and you give it an extension number, and then you click on Create Attendant. Now, once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. You have a choice. Is it unavailable in main menu, right? Or if you click on it, available in main menu, right? So if unavailable in main menu means it's on its own, it's a standalone attendant, right? Usually means it's for its own separate business. Right? Spanish, available in main menu. Well, we've already seen it available under the virtual receptionist, right? As that fourth option, or even advanced call flows under the virtual reception itself. This means it's a sub-menu option, right? It's available in different menus. Now, your auto attendants can have their own numbers, right? You can add from spare or buy new numbers. The extension number is internal use, right? Your staff members could actually transfer calls to these extension numbers, right? Odds are your customers are not going to know these extension numbers and have no need to. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. And then you see I have the virtual receptionist, I have these open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, which matches what we set up under main number. But you notice I only have the option for the virtual receptionist for the secondary attendants, right? But again, menu options, greetings, etc. All right, next up we have our devices page or tab. A green device means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to and from it. Right, so it's as far as we know, it is working. Right, it's connected to us. Red, unregistered, so we don't know why. All we know is we can't send calls to it. And you can click here under enable. If you turn a device off, then it becomes a black device. Here at the top, you can add devices. First up is SIP phone, right? That's that physical phone that sits on your desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some of them have many models, all right? Some not as many. But basically what you want to do is find your manufacturer, find the model of the phone you're working with. Then you need to give it a name, right? It's up to you what you want to name the device, right? I normally go with whoever's using device, right? So Bob's phone, right? It's Bob's phone. That's what he uses, right? Or conference phone, right? If it doesn't have a particular person, right? Break room phone. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique for each phone. It's going to be a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, right, it has power, you can normally also find it under like their basic settings or the status settings. And it will be labeled MAC, M-A-C. All right, but then you would enter this information, click on create device, and then the only other thing you have to do is go to a user and assign it to a user. Now, as far as our dashboard is concerned here, you're done. However, you're actually not done because you need to access that phone's web user interface, right? Web UI. Get to the auto provisioning section and enter in a URL, right? Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here, get your config file, right? It will do so. It will reboot a couple of times, typically, and then show up as a green device. Now, for the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages and you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. That document will have screenshots for these various manufacturers. So you know what to look like, as well as the proper syntax for that URL. And for at least a couple of them, settings to double check to make sure they're proper. Again, that's Auto Provisioning Phones on our support pages. Cell phone and landline are the same, right? You give it a name, right? Angela's phone, and then you put in the number, right? +1 area code and phone number. Then you click on create device. Now, when we send calls to a cell phone or a landline, I'll go down here, right? This is the default settings under advanced for a cell phone or a landline. So call comes into our system, or technically your system, right? And then we send the call out to your cell phone. Right, your cell phone rings. When you pick up, you'll hear a message. This is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call. Right? It then connects the inbound call to you. You begin speaking. Now, if, for instance, you need to add a phone number as a device because you're sending calls to, say, an after-hours answering service, that happens to be fairly automated. So it's not an actual person picking up the call. It's a computer, right? It's going to play some sort of greeting and then probably give menu options, right? Gets to a virtual receptionist of some sort. In that instance, under these advanced settings, it's this top one here. You want to put a check mark right there. Wow. In front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. What this does is when we send the call out to the number, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? We're not waiting for you to press 1. So for that automated answering service, right, it picks up, it then handles the call smoothly. That also means that if you actually have this on your cell phone enabled, right, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we treat that like a connected call. so that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing to be aware of is this second option down here, which is keep original caller ID, right? So customer memory calls to your system, it gets routed to your cell phone. On your cell phone's display, you see customer memory's phone number, you don't recognize it, and you've already had 3 calls in a row about extending your auto warranty, and you're tired of them. And you have more patience than I do. So you let it go to voicemail, right? Maybe you're able to connect with customer Mary later, maybe you're not. Maybe she's moved on to one of your competitors. So what you could do is uncheck this, keep original caller ID. So now instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up on your cell phone, it's your main company number. Let's go back to the dashboard. Right, this number that you selected here is what would show up on your cell phone's display. So it's a way to visually let you know what kind of call is coming in. Right? Oh, it's a business call. That's probably worth it for me to try to answer it. All right, soft phone. Now, when you add a soft phone on the devices page, it's only allowing you to create a third-party soft phone. Right, so you're using Zoiper instead of the VirtualPBX soft phone app, right? Or when you looked under SIP phones, you couldn't find the make and model of your phone. So this would be your option, would be to use these third-party credentials. You still need to give it a name, right? You know, Donald's phone. You want to copy and paste the SIP password. Then under SIP password, you want to click here, right, to reveal the password. Then you want to copy and paste that. You do not want to change it. And then you want to copy and paste your realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision your third-party soft phone or VoIP device. Excuse me. And again, once you click on Create Device, you just want to add it to a user, and then you would need to, again, work on provisioning that device. We have a couple guides for provisioning third-party soft phones, not a lot, just because there are a ton of soft phones on the market. Also on the devices page, you can click on the little wrench icon here under Edit. And under audio, you want to make sure that you have these 3 credentials, or codecs, right? G711A, G711U. You probably don't need Opus on a physical VoIP phone. Opus we typically use for the VirtualPBX soft phone app. Restrictions would be if you want to restrict where a particular device can call, like international, because you don't want to pay international rates for everybody. External caller ID, you can change the outbound caller ID of a particular VoIP phone, as well as the emergency caller ID. All right, soft phones. All right, got the credentials, but you can still do the external and emergency. All right, the greetings tab, right, shows all your media files on the account, whether they're a text-to-speech greeting, something you called in and recorded over the phone, or a file you uploaded. You'll see the name, and then you'll see the type, right? Upload means you uploaded it, right? TTS, text-to-speech. Recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download these files to listen to them to see if they're still relevant. And then if you click on the little wrench icon, you have the option to delete it, right? Or rename it. So like for the main open hours menu TTS, right? You could change the file name to something you'd recognize. Groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments, essentially. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in this group, and then you click on Create Group. Now, once a group is created, you can click on its name. You can always change the name. Then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system is going to offer calls to the members of the group, right? This one's set at 2. I have little arrows here to the right, so I can increase or decrease the number of attempts, and then click on Save Changes. Then you want to click on the members box here to the right, right? These show your staff members who are part of the group, right? You have an option to add users down here, the bottom left. You can remove people on the right. Along the top, these are timestamps, right? This last one you can edit. And like I can take it down to 120, which is the default. And then I can click distribute. When I click distribute, excuse me, right? I'm equalizing the amount of time that the system is offering the call to each user. Now, these are sliders, so I can adjust the ringing time as I see fit. I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Right, so now when a call comes into my group, it rings everybody's phones. Right, because let's say I didn't want, or I can go back to having it in order. I can change the order by clicking on someone's name and dragging them down or dragging them up. Now, the ring order hasn't changed, right? David's still first, Michael's second. But if I click distribute, now Peter's first, right? Then Michael, and then David's at the end. But again, I can also adjust the time so I have overlap. All right, or even do something like this. All right, but those are your only routing options you have with a group. Some things to be in mind about groups is your staff members can take calls on any kind of phone, right? Cell phone, landline, VoIP phone. On a group call, that's fine. If your users have multiple devices, when they get offered a call from the group, all of their devices will ring at the same time until they pick up or another staff member picks up. So let's say call comes in and Peter answers, right? A second call comes in, Peter will usually hear a call waiting beep until Michael picks up or John. Now, if Peter goes into his phone's settings and disables call waiting, then he won't hear that call waiting beep. All right, groups can have both an extension number as well as their own phone number. But again, like in this case, right, this phone number is available 24/7. So if the staff member, right, has their personal cell phone as a device, right, they're going to get calls all the time, or they can get a call at any time. Groups can have multiple phone numbers. Now, groups and Acdqs are related, right, or they're similar. Queues can only have either an extension number or a phone number, right? They cannot have both. Your staff members who are in a queue, they can only accept calls on a VoIP phone, right? So SIP phone, soft phone, or a web phone. Now, the advantage that the queues have is your staff members, right? They can take themselves out of the queue, right? They can log out of the queue. They can mark themselves away, right? Your group members, they're always taking calls or always offered calls, right? Now, their only option is if they have the Dnd toggle at the top, right? They can mark themselves as do not disturb, but that means they're not getting any calls. Whereas a queue member, right? They can mark themselves away from the queue, but someone can still call their extension. All right, then there's group features. First up is ring back. So when a call comes into the group, right? We send it out to your users. When the system receives the ringing sound back from that device we're trying to reach out to, right? That sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, right? The ringing sound. If you don't want that ringing sound to be piped back to the customer, then you would enable ring back, and then you would upload a .wav, .mp3, .ogg file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Now, if for some reason we don't get that ringing sound coming back from your staff member, right, from their phone, for whatever reasons, and you have ringback enabled, your inbound caller will hear silence until we get that ringing sound back, right? Because the ringback file is replacing the sound of the ringing, and we have to get that initial ringing sound in the first place. Next action, this is if no one picks up, where do you want to send the call? Right, so you would enable this, and then you have a pull down, send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to your secondary attendants. Right, you can send it to a call queue if you have them. You can send it to a specific device, right, specific phone. You can send it to a different ring group. You can send it to one of your users or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable it, that means your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not at their normal phone. And then you have caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either text or numbers in front of what shows up on the caller ID. Right? So again, gives your staff members a heads up about what the call is. Numbers starts you off on numbers in use, so you can see where your numbers are going. Now you can't unassign a number here, right? You'd have to go to the right spot. So for like this one here for Mark, I'd have to go to the users tab to remove it. Now you do have the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID and the E911 and the prepend. Spare numbers, right? These are numbers you're not currently using. If you're over your allotment, right, and you want to reduce your bill, this is where you would go to remove a phone number. So for instance, if I put a check mark here in front of 424, notice up here, now I have the option to delete. And I'll get rid of this toll-free number. Delete those numbers. It says confirm the deletion. And now I have 2 less phone numbers, so I reduce my phone bill. You have the option to buy numbers, right? Local toll-free, right? It would just add them as spare numbers so you can use them elsewhere on the system later. Port is moving a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So from T-Mobile to VirtualPBX. You just click on new port request, you give it a name, choose local or toll-free, and now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill within the last 30 days. All right, it's then going to ask you to input the address, right, the service address for the phone number or numbers that you're porting. It will ask you then to input the phone numbers that you want to port. It will give you the ability to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, as well as then upload a completed and signed version of that LOA. There's 4 checkboxes you need to check, and then you would click submit. After you click submit, the system will email you right away saying, you submitted a port request. Usually by the next business day, our porting team will send you a second email, right? So that lets you know human people, looked at the port request and have acted on it. If for some reason you don't get either of those emails, you can always email porting, right? porting at virtualpbx.com. You can also submit your documents to them directly that way instead of going through this process. Some things to keep in mind about porting. Toll-free numbers, usually about 3 to 5 business days if everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks, again, if everything is correct. If we get a rejection, it's not always very specific, right? So like we can get a rejection for address mismatch. We don't necessarily know if that's because the street address was wrong or the zip code was wrong. Now, we normally double check that information to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side. But we usually then pass that information on to you saying, hey, we got this error that we can't correct, right? 'Cause we don't have a way to verify it. So then you would need to double check with your current carrier to find out what should it be on the LOA. About the LOA, right, when it asks for company information, right, like the company name and the address, that should match what your current carrier has on file for you. And it does need to be signed. Now, it can be a digital signature. That's fine. You just don't want to type your name twice, right? That's going to get rejected. All right, the Users tab shows your users on the account. The gray person icon is a standard user. Little blue suit icon, system admin, right? So they can do all the things we can do here. Up here at the top, you can click on Add User. Right? You fill out this form. So first and last name, hopefully you know that information for your staff members. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse an email address. Password, you create a password for your users. And then main extension number. Now the system will suggest an extension number. So if you started off with extension 1000, it would suggest 1001 for the next person. You don't have to follow that, right? I can type in a whole new extension number. I do typically recommend using 4-digit extensions. It gives you plenty of room to grow and saves your menu options for your virtual receptionist. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user at the same time. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to that user. So for instance, if I created a user and I added a VoIP phone to them right away, that user could pick up that VoIP phone and enter *98 and then click send on their phone. That will automatically log them into the voicemail box that I just created for them at the same time. The system will then prompt them to enter in a PIN number for that voicemail box, right? Create a new PIN number for it, and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Right, so get that all done in one shot. You have the option to include in the user directory. You can always change that later. And then we have send emails to an alternate address. So by default, any email that the system would send to the user would go to the email address used for login, right? So voicemail notifications, password resets, etc. If for some reason my user didn't want to use that email, or I didn't want them to, right, I could send to an alternate address and then enter in that different email address here. So like if I wanted my support staff for voicemails and password resets, I just wanted it all to go to a support at virtualpbx.com. I could put that in, and that email address will then get all those emails. Right, and then this one here, I think is important, is send credentials to the user, and then you would click on create user, right? So once I click on create user, that person I just added would get an email with their login information. If you need to add multiple people, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right? You can change their name. You can click on change credentials if you need to change their email address or password. And then you also have the option right there to send them the password reset email. You can change the voicemail box PIN number, right? Just enter a 4-digit PIN. Again, here's the option to send to an alternate address. And here is for the user directory. Down here at the bottom, you can delete a user. Over here on the right, this first is a pull down where you can change a user to an admin or an admin to a user. Here's the time zone, right? This would be good for the voicemail timestamps are correct for that user. This is the display language of the web pages that show up for this user: English, French, German, and Russian. Ringing timeout for users is defaults to 20 seconds. Now, this is telling me that I've enabled a feature called follow me on this user, so I should adjust that to adjust his ringing timeout. Users can have multiple extension numbers. Now, if you need to swap extension numbers or like change an extension number, I usually suggest assigning the new extension first and then unassigning the original extension, right? And then save changes. Users can have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare, buy new, and they can have multiple if you want them to. Again, these phone numbers, right? These are not main numbers, so they're available 24/7. And then users, you can add devices, right? So we have these 3 devices. You can unassign a device and then save changes, so note to reduce the number of devices. the main thing I want to show here under devices for new devices, add soft phone. This is where you can add the VirtualPBX soft phone. Oops, he already has one. Here, we can right? So on the devices page, right, it looks almost the same except down here at the very bottom where it defaults to say use third-party application. You can click on that. Now it says use VirtualPBX application, but it's saying, hey, this person already has one, or at least this email address associated with them already has one. So I would need to find a user that doesn't have one. Actually, I think Michael has one too. All right, that's a web phone. We'll see if this one allows me to do it. Right, so now I just give it a name. I click on create device, and then when I click on save changes, John's going to get an email. It's going to have his soft phone login credentials as well as download links. Right, so the VirtualPBX soft phone has its own login information. It's different than your Dash login. Also on the user page, it's easier to add the web phone to a user because the web phone has login information, but it uses your Dash login, right? So it needs to be associated with the user in order for you to be able to log in. So we can add a web phone here. And then save changes. So let me add, you can also add from spare, right? So if you have devices that you had unassigned from one user, you can then move it to a second user. And in that case where you're moving a device, right? If you click on the device's name here, you can change the name to match the new person. Right. User features, caller ID number. This only applies to users that have their own phone number. Basically, when you turn it on, you're saying use their own phone number as their outbound caller ID instead of the account phone number. Call forward. This is a feature your users can turn on themselves, right? They don't need you to do that. And that's via the user portal or on the VoIP phone itself. Now, failover mode is something an admin would have to set up. And what that is when their VoIP phone goes offline and a call happens to come into the user, the system will automatically forward it to the forwarding number. Now, this number that you add in as a forwarding phone number should not be a device on the user, right? So I have multiple devices here, and one of these is a cell phone. So since I already have a cell phone here on this user, I should not forward to that same cell phone number, right? Because now I'm causing a loop. Now, if I'm going to forward, I could maybe, his cell phone's also not working. I could forward to yet a completely different phone number. That's fine. Right, but basically for forwarding, you're sending it calls to phone numbers that aren't normally or a day-to-day use device on the user. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. If you enable it, if you use 4-digit extensions, just make the hot desk ID that person's extension number is the easiest thing to do. But this is for use when you're in a shared office environment or a hybrid setting where people may switch desks from day to day, right? So Aaron comes in on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 3. He goes to the VoIP phone there. He picks it up. He hits *11. Click send. That turns on hot desking. The system asks him for his hot desk ID. If the admin set up a PIN number for it, he would ask him for the PIN number as well. Once he does that, the system will then tell him calls will now be sent to this device. So now for the rest of his day, right, calls that are going to Aaron are going to ring at the phone he's sitting at. Right, end of his day, he picks up the handset, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time Aaron rolls into the office, right, let's say that's Friday, right, someone's already sitting at desk number 3. He says hi to Felicia, and he, wanders over to desk number 14, sits down, same thing, *11, hot desk ID. Now he's getting calls at that phone. Voicemail box, right? This is the feature we enabled when we created the user. This is basically the default settings. Transcription is technically a plan-specific feature, right? The system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in the voicemail notification for you to the best of its ability. Just bear in mind, things like background noise, people not talking in their mic can make it a little difficult for the system to transcribe. And by default, the system is going to be sending an attachment via email to the user, right? That attachment's going to be an MP3, so they can just double click on it and listen to it right on their computer. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. Once they get to that point, the voicemail box is full and will not accept any more voicemails. To avoid that, you can do this one here, which is delete after notification. Right? So basically, we send out that email with the attachment, and then we remove the voicemail from the system. Now, what that means is your staff members will no longer be able to call in to listen to their voicemails because they won't be there, right? They can't go to the user portal and listen to them there because, again, they're already removed once that email gets sent out. Essentially means your staff members can only get their voicemail via their email. Fax box, users can have their own fax box if you want them to. If you decide to enable this, I recommend making use of a phone number. Right? So if you add from spare or buy a new number, that way this person can then send and receive faxes. Right? In this case, right, Aaron has an extension number for his faxing. This means Aaron can only receive faxes. He cannot send out. Right? Because the system will see that he has a fax box and try to use his extension number for the outbound caller ID, which is not enough digits, so it will fail. Conference Bridge, basically you enable it, and as an admin, the only thing you really need to do is turn on enter in a PIN number and then click on Save Changes. Your staff members will be able to edit that PIN number themselves via the user portal. Follow Me, again, for users with multiple devices. When you first enable it, it actually looks like this because it wants to know what devices you want to use and then in which order, right? So each device you want to use, you want to uncheck. And you have this ringing time here. You can click Distribute just like groups. And just like groups, you can change the order. Right, and these are sliders, so you can adjust the timing of it as well. Now, in general, 120 seconds is a long time for someone to wait to get the voicemail. So this is probably a little bit more reasonable. Now, this is a cell phone. Sometimes 20 seconds is not enough time for calls to ring to a cell phone. So you might want to adjust it up to like 30 to 35. Right, and that's going to vary because basically it depends on the cell phone carrier's load. Technically, solar flares can affect cell phone traffic, so just be aware. Music on hold, you can have your users have their own hold music if you want them to. Just upload a file, right? .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Customize call recording, you can record calls on your system. When you first enable the call recording feature, this is what it looks like. You need to tell the system what kind of calls do you want recorded. Right? Inbound internal, that's someone on your Dash account calling Aaron, right? Coworker Bob. Right? Inbound external, customer. Outbound, a call from outside the system coming into Aaron, right? So customer call. Right? Outbound internal means Aaron's calling a colleague. You can turn that on if you want. And then outbound external would be Aaron calling a customer back or a vendor back. And then click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes at least some amount of storage as part of your monthly plan price. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. If you go over, right, there'll be an overage based on per gigabyte. If you have a heavy call volume, right, and you're going to record all your calls, I would recommend getting an AWS account, right, Amazon Web Services. You can link that to your Dash account and have your call recording stored at AWS, which for higher volume would definitely probably be in your interest in terms of cost. And then you can put a user on Do Not Disturb. Voicemail boxes. This shows your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything that has an entry here in the user column means it's a user voicemail box. You can create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top. Just give it a name, then a voicemail box number, and then a PIN number. Click on Create a Voicemail. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the little wrench icon here. Right, so you can review this information. So this is the voicemail box number, and the PIN number is what you would do to like access the voicemail box over the phone, like record a greeting, etc. But you can also go under Advanced, go to Greeting Media. You can upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg. You can also use the pull downs to select from a media file that's already in place. Now, the temporary file, right? This is your vacation or out of office message. So if something is selected in this field to the right here, this will supersede whatever you have under the media file until you send the temporary file back to none. All right, recipients. Now, your user voicemail boxes already have one recipient built in, right? But for any voicemail box you create for like your ring groups, for example, then you'd want to add a recipient and then enter the email address. Now, if you only need to add one, right, then you would click Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, you would just click the Add button again and then add the second email address. So once you've added a media file, right, have a greeting file for the voicemail box and have a recipient, then you can check the box for already set up. Up to you if you want to delete after notification, and you typically do want the attach the voicemail to email. And then click on Save Changes. All right, advanced routing. This is where DISA, or Direct Inward System Access, is. Now, this feature is not enabled on newly created accounts immediately. This is something you have to talk to our account services team first. What DISA allows you to do is you can call in with your cell phone, right, to your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. It allows you to log in over the phone. Then you'll hear dial tone again, and then you can make an outbound call, right, to one of your clients. And instead of your cell phone number showing up to your client, your main company number shows up as the outbound caller ID. Right? We go back to dashboard. Right? This is that phone number that would show up on the outbound caller ID, not my cell phone number. So first we come here, we enable it, and then I recommend click Edit Settings. Click Add an Extension, and give it an extension that's not in your normal sequence, right? So, and this is to prevent a bad actor from figuring out your DISA information, right? Because if someone is able to figure out the extension number and the PIN number, right, they can log in and then make outbound calls on your account, and you may not know about it right away. Now, you can set up DISA as a menu option. Again, not recommended because it's pretty easy to figure out what a menu option is. And then after that, the bad actor only needs to figure out what your PIN number is before they can get to it. That's why I prefer the extension number. That's not in part of your normal sequence of your normal extensions, because you're just making it that much more difficult for someone to figure out. And that's also why I disable it after talking about it here in this demo account. Now, one way to see if there's unusual call activity on your account is via the call logs. Right, so here I see my call activity for today. These green arrows to the right, that's the inbound call. I can click on it to see which devices were associated or offered, right? So lose race means this person didn't pick up on this phone, but I see here, also based on the timing, they picked up on what looks like a cell phone, right? Normal clearing, that means the call ended normally as far as the system is concerned. Right, these yellow arrows to the left, that means that's an outbound call, right? So that could be someone who tried to use DISA, but I can see here, this was from a web phone. Notice these little fire hydrants here to the right. This creates a new email that goes to support@virtualpbx.com, and it includes the technical details of the call. Now, in the body of that email, I do encourage you to type in what happened or what didn't happen, right? Basically the reason why you're reporting this particular call. Now, you can download this file. Just download it as a CSV so you can use your favorite spreadsheet program to sort the information and make use of it. You can also sort by the week, right, by the month, and then the custom, if I can click properly, right, you can choose your date range. The system can go back to up to 1 year to get your call records, and then you can download them. If you do need to keep your call records for compliance reasons, I would recommend you do so every month. Again, with heavy call volume, you might actually have to go week by week to get the call logs, just because the system can take a long time if you try to go a full month with heavy call volume. If for some reason you need to go back further than 12 months, our engineering team can go back up to 18 months. But after that, the data is gone and we're not able to recover it. Feature codes, I've mentioned a couple of these, but these all allow your VoIP phone users to access different features of VoIP directly from, or different features of Dash directly from their VoIP phones. Now, this information is also a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has a brief write-up about how to make use of these different features or feature codes. All right, so that was the dashboard. Next up, we have Blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system, right? So they try to dial your phone numbers, they're gonna get a busy tone because you don't wanna hear from them. So first you click on Edit Blacklists. And if you don't have one, you would click on Add. And then you wanna give it a name, like block list, for example. And then do you wanna block anonymous calls or not? Right, so if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, do you want to, if you turn this on, that means those calls won't get through, right? If you're okay with getting anonymous calls into your system, then just leave it off. Then after that, you click on Add Number. You put +1, area code and phone number, no parentheses, no dashes, just +1, the plus sign, the number 1, and then area code and number. And then you keep clicking Add for each phone number you want to block. When you're done, you would click on Save, and then you go back to Settings, you make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected, and then you click Update. Now the phone numbers on your list can't reach your system, right? They're going to get busy tone. And that would be another reason to use the call logs to find out the phone numbers of harassing inbound calls. All right, the Fax Manager, also an included feature. This allows you to see any faxes that come into your system, depending on the fax box. I don't think I have a lot of inbound faxes here. Oh, here we go. So you see the date and the time, the phone number it came from, where it was going, number of pages. You can download the file. You can see some technical details. Outbound faxing. You can see like when it's failed, you probably want to investigate why it failed. Now, under outbound faxes, this means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. So you at least know that the system processed the request, but it had then problems delivering. So we have the date, the time, etc. You can download it, but if you click on this last icon here to see the details, we'll get some more information. You want to scroll down, and no endpoints. I forget the exact meaning of that, but basically, again, we had problems with it. That could be we had a bad fax number. That basically nothing, no one picked up, etc. Email to fax logs. Anything that shows up here, this is where the system had a problem processing the request. Right, so it didn't even make it out to the other fax machine. Right, so you see the email address, so you can make sure it's from the proper domain. Right, you can see the to format, so you can see if it's in the proper format, the date, the time, and the little eyeball icon. If you click on that, that gives you some more information, like this one here saying, hey, this person doesn't have a fax box. And since it's a Gmail account, that would make sense, right? Since my my outbound permissions for my main fax box is a virtualpbx.com. All right, likewise, if I go to this one here, no valid attachment. All right, so for outbound faxing, you need to use a PDF or a TIFF file. So obviously, either this person did not include an attachment, or they use a different file format. Number Manager, this basically takes you back to your spare number page. Reports will take you to the advanced reporting portal. So it opens up a new tab. This is a plan-specific feature. So if you're interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. I mentioned at the very beginning of this, we have a video on our YouTube channel that is the advanced reporting demo. So if you're interested in this feature, I would say take a look at that video, and then you can talk to account services about adding it. But essentially, this allows you to create your own reports to get some more insight about, how the call activity on your system. Voicemail Manager, this is included, and you can get to any voicemail box on the account, and you can see the messages. You can play them back. You can download them. If you put a check mark, you can move them to a different voicemail box, or just leave them for deletion. ACDQs. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. This requires it's an upgrade for specific plans. So it's possible you might have to change plans in order to add an ACDQ as then an additional upgrade fee on top of that. So something you'd want to talk to our account services team. This is a call center feature. Right. This, as I mentioned under groups, it allows your staff members to control whether they're getting calls or not, right? They can mark themselves available or away. They can log out. Here we can add a new queue. So you give it a name, and then you select either a phone number or an extension. So I can select a spare number. And then here, oops, doesn't like that pull down. But first up, you have call routing strategy. Round robin equalizes out over time. Ring all, right? Just rings everybody at once. Most idle, whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call. Least calls, least amount of connected calls. And then least offers is the combination of missed and connected calls. Hold treatment, you have the default music. You can upload your own file or select a media file that you already have on the account. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time people can wait on hold. The queue call limit, you can limit the number of people who can wait on hold. So I can put in 4, right? So that means only 4 people can wait on hold. Now, that would be on top of the callers that are already speaking to my staff members, right? This is just that initial hold group. Timeout immediately if empty, if I enable that, that means if I have no staff members logged in, the system will treat any inbound call as if they hit that 3,600 seconds. Escalation call flow after timeout. Basically, when they hit that 3,600 seconds, where do I want to send the call? Right? You can send it to users, to groups. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to a different queue, etc. And then you have the escalation zero out call flow. Sorry. So you basically, if you enable this, you're saying the inbound caller can press 0 while they're waiting on hold, and then you select where they go. Then we have the agent settings. Agent recovery timer measured in seconds, anywhere from 0 to 15 is pretty standard. Actually, 0 to 30. You can force away on reject or missed. That means if an agent misses a call, right, that they don't pick up, the system automatically puts them in away mode, right? So that means that user needs to mark themselves ready again to be able to accept calls. And then agent connects timeout, measured in seconds. 20 is typically plenty because for queues, you can only accept calls with a VoIP phone. That's normally enough time. And then you would click on create queue. Once a queue is created, you want to go over here to the menu members. Now this list of people here, I've already added, or they're available to be in my queues, right? So they won't have that Dnd toggle. If I click on manage members, right, I can add more people, right? These are my staff members who I haven't yet added as a queue member. So I click on their name and I click on add as members. And now Giovanni is available to be in the queues. And then likewise, I can remove Josh here from being in my queues. And now he's not in the queue list. Once you're done with that, you would want to go back and click on the queues. If you click on the queue's name, now you can add staff members to a queue. So I can click and drag and add Giovanni. Once you've added agents to a queue, you can then choose which of those agents are managers, right? You would just click and drag them over and then save changes. Right, so now for your staff members, right? They can log in through the website. They would select ACD queues. They first click on begin session. Now, especially that first time they log in, they want to click on the little phone icon here and make sure they select a device, right? Don't use select all. Right, click on that again. And then when they're ready to take calls, they mark themselves as ready. Notice I went from red to green. And so now I'm just waiting for a call to come in. Now my little status bar here on the left will change, right? So when I'm offered a call, it'll change to light blue. It'll say connecting, right? When I'm actually on an inbound call, I'll turn to a darker blue and say connected. When I'm on away, right, it turns to me red. When I'm on an external call, so a call from outside of the queue, right, I'll be yellow and it'll say external call. And if I'm on wrap-up time, I will have a little gold bar here on the left. right? So when I go to lunch, I would mark myself as away, right? End of my day, I just end my session. So now I'm not even getting any calls in the queue. Now, we also have Acdqs Pro available, which is an upgrade over these. The first major difference is there's a performance button here. So as an admin or a manager, you can compare agents to each other. In terms of the setup, the major difference is the hold treatment on the Acdqs Pro. You can have multiple media files play, but you can also have things like announce the person's position in line or announce their expected wait time. And then also on the Pro queues, managers can eavesdrop on a call. They can whisper to their staff member as well as barge into a call. We do have that demo on our YouTube channel under videos, Acdqs Pro demo. Dynamic caller ID, this is also a plan-specific feature where you can create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So if you click on edit here, this one is based on the area code. So I named it 408. And I said whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 area code to change the number to this 408 phone number. Now this lists the caller ID to display. This is all my phone numbers on my account. And then I click on Save Changes. So now any of my VoIP phone users dial 408 phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to what I specified. This other list or option here is a little more complicated. This is where I'm saying staff members, when you dial out, enter a feature code, *550, and then enter area code and the phone number you're reaching out to, right? Then the system, when it sees that feature code, it's going to replace the caller ID with 323 area code phone number. Now, when you create these feature codes, I recommend star and then 3 digits. So that way you're not going to run afoul of any of the feature codes that are already based on the system. Okay, and then we have monitor, also another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status or the presence of all your staff members. It doesn't matter what device they're using. Right, so here I see that everyone's available because this is a test account, but I could switch it to the device view. Right, I could see who's busy, who's available. Over here, right, this is the inbound calls, so I can see where the active inbound calls and who they're speaking to. And then under part calls, if there's a part call, I also see the parking spot number. The recording manager will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which is your dash login to log into, so that you can view your recordings. You can listen to them, download them, and delete them. If you link an AWS account to your Dash account with a recording bucket, then the recording manager link here will go to the AWS interface. So you can see your recordings there. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team, but this allows you to link Dash to other software. So like to Zapier, for example, right? So you would create a new hook and basically follow these parameters. This is a little beyond me because it's getting towards programming, but essentially you create the hook and then you need something like Zapier or AutoCode to latch onto on the other side. So you're transmitting data to this other software. Now, we do have a Zapier or Welcome to Zapier webinar posted about a month ago on our YouTube channel. So you can look at that. You can also look at samples of what we've linked Dash to at developer.virtualpbx.com. And you'll see sample code there. And then lastly, we have the user portal. So every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you can't view their individual user portals, but you can view everything they have there. So it doesn't really matter. But here, this is where a user could see their own voicemails, right? They can play them back, they can listen to them, and they can decide to mark it as deleted or listened, etc. There's a call history tab, so they can see the history of calls to and from them, and they can change the date range. If they have their own fax box, they would see their fax history. The contact list tab, right, shows all the users on your Dash account and the groups and the auto attendants, etc. Basically a way for your users to be able to look up extensions quickly. The conference tab, on the right is where your users would adjust their moderator PIN as well as their participant PIN number, as well as do people join in muted, do they join deafened, are you playing entry and exit tones? When you're in a conference, right, you'd want this page up. So then you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock it, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. Also, when you're in a conference, right, under participants, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick them out. And then the settings and devices tab. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Right? They just put a check mark here, enter +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes, and they can see the status of their devices. All right, and that is everything. And I'm not seeing any questions waiting in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you for your time today, and we'll be back again next Tuesday.